welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to dive into the two new palettes that were launched from Dior in their Summer Dune 2021 collection. I recently posted these in my community center letting you know that I would be picking these up and doing a test on them and share my thoughts on them. I am wearing both of the palettes on my eyes, but as you can tell, they don't really look all that different. But you know, we're gonna jump right into it. So I picked these up on the Selfridges website and they retailed for $55 each. So this is the $7.59 Dune. I just took out the little applicators here because they kept falling out. And this is $6.99 Mirage. So we have Mirage and we have Dune. Now, as you can see, they have some like rigid texture to them because the collection is Summer Dune. So they have these little like details in there where they're kind of, I mean, I've already used these, so some of the embossing's off on this center, but you can see how they have the ridges in there. They are very interesting. When I posted them on my community center, somebody posted and said they look like vomit, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna unsee that now because they kind of do. I'm not gonna lie, they're really pretty. I like the embossing. Kind of well thought out as far as, you know, being that it's about sand dunes and stuff, but they do kind of have a little bit of, yeah, they do kind of look like that. So we're going to go ahead and test them and play with them today. I have a lot to say about these, you guys, a lot, good and bad. And I do think that it is good to see reviews of these before you buy them, because I think if you're expecting something, you might be disappointed. So we're going to get into all of it. So let's go ahead and jump into the two tutorials of me kind of playing around with each one of the palettes. I show you guys how I apply them on my eye and kind of the tips and tricks that I had to use in order to make them work, especially for my skin tone. If you guys are curious about my skin tone, I will leave a list in the description box down below of popular foundations out on the market and what shades I wear in those foundations, so you can kind of use it as a guide. So without further ado, let's jump into the tutorials, and then of course we will get into the swatches and comparisons, and then I will get into my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into $7.59 Dune. And these are very shimmery, and they don't have any matte, and they don't really have a lot of pigment. Based on swatching them, they're very, very light pigmented, like kind of just like a wash of color. They don't have a lot of depth. So we're gonna try to make this work. I might need to grab, you know, even maybe a bronzer or something just to give them something. I'm gonna stick my finger into this shade right here, and let's just stick this on the lid. There's not a lot of pigment. That's not, okay, let's grab the felt tip applicator. You guys know that I love felt tip applicators. I think they are very underrated. So I'm gonna grab the felt tip applicator that comes with the palette, and let's try it again. Y'all. Oh my goodness gracious. Let's go ahead and dampen it. So I'm going to dampen my applicator, and how I like to dampen it is I don't like to spray it with like a setting spray. I like to take my makeup wipe that's dampened and squeeze the tip of it. And it kind of brings moisture to the tip without spraying it with something. So let's go in one more time with the dampened applicator and let's go over it. Oh yeah, so the dampened applicator really gives you the vibrancy, right? There are some that don't like a lot of pigment and they just like a very soft wash of color. You can achieve a little bit more vibrancy by dampening the applicator. Now, because of the way that that shadow applied, I'm a little bit worried about grabbing like a blending brush and going in. So I'm not sure how this is gonna work, but I'm gonna grab just a smaller like pencil brush, and I'm gonna go into this dark shade right here. I'm just gonna kind of pounce it in there and pick some of it up. And let's put some of that like right here on the outer corner. going to take the other side of the dampened applicator and I'm going to go into the brown and just build it up here on this outer corner. Let's go into this shade. This is a really pretty gold shade, and I'm gonna put that gold. Oh, okay, so the gold has a lot more pigment with the dampened applicator. So I need a little bit of depth, you guys. Like, this isn't really giving me enough depth. I am actually going to grab my new Dior bronzers. I'm going to grab the shade number 7 Golden Bronze. This is from Dior, and I just reviewed these, so if you guys haven't seen this video, I will link it up in the iCards. But I'm just going to take a blending brush, just a smaller one, and lightly bring that right up in here in the crease, just to kind of deepen this up a little bit, because I do think that if you guys decide to get this palette, you're probably more than likely going to want to use it with something. They don't really have a lot of pigment to give you much depth. I have a breakout right here above my eyebrow, and it's like the worst spot to have a breakout. I'm like, what is going on? It's the weirdest place to have a breakout. I've never had one there before. I got a little bit of fallout, but not a lot. Okay, so I went ahead and threw on some concealer. Let's go ahead and work on the lower lash line. So I'm gonna try to wear this brown on the lower lash line. I think I'm gonna try to get some here on the brush, and then maybe spray my brush with some MAC Fix Plus. So, you know, just to see if I can get some of the definition here from that color. So wetting it down gives it some depth, right? Let's try that on this outer corner. So I'm gonna load the brush up and put some of it out here on the outer corner just to really get that shimmer to kind of come to life. Now, I do need to fix this line. I'm well aware I don't really prefer lines like this, so I'm just going to take the brush that I used to apply the bronzer with no extra product and just kind of buff this out a little bit. Okay, so the next thing I want to do, I want to take the felt tip applicator that I just kind of did my makeup wipe with, and I'm going to grab this middle shade right here, and I'm going to place it right here on the center. I'm going to put that on the inner corner. So I'm going to use the felt tip applicator. And again, I'm going to squeeze it with my makeup wipe just to kind of dampen it a little bit. And I'm going to grab this and place it right here. I'm going to bring some of that right up here on. So this is the final look using the $7.59 Dune palette. And I have a lot to say about this palette, good and bad, which I will save all of that for my final thoughts. But for now, we're going to go ahead and jump into the next palette. Let's go ahead and jump into the $6.99 Mirage palette. Now, this is a little bit lighter. And when I was swatching it, I noticed that it wasn't quite as glittery as the Dune. So this is the Mirage palette. This one is a little bit more on the shimmer side versus the Dune has a little bit more of a glitter pigment in it. You can kind of see, I just went ahead and swatched the Dune on this side. Of course, I'll do way better swatches in my swatches and comparisons, but this is just to kind of show you kind of the difference in texture of these palettes. The Dune has more like glitter in the shimmer. These are just more shimmer, I would say. These have a glitter shimmer base to them. So this palette's definitely going to be a little bit different than the Dune. So let's just go ahead and play with it and put it on and see what we can do. Now, based on my experience with the other palette, and based on swatching it, I have a feeling I'm going to also need to use the felt tip applicators that come in the palette. Let's grab this shade right here. And we're going to put this on the lid, and I'm going to put it on without dampening it. It needs something. I need to dampen this because I can barely get it to show up on my skin. So I'm going to take my makeup wipe and I'm going to squeeze the tip of it. And then I'm going to go back into that shade. We're getting somewhere, but based on my experience, both of these palettes, if you have my skin tone and you need the color to actually appear, dampening it is going to be key. I can tell you that it's going to be key. Let's grab this shade right below it. There's really not a lot of differences between those two shades. I would just say the one below it has more of an orange base. Yeah, there's not much differences between those two shades. I'm not quite sure why they're both in the palette, to be honest with you. This is the top shade. This is the bottom shade. Let's go over top of it with this shade. This palette has pretty much no depth. At least with Dune, it had a little tiny bit of depth. Not a lot, but a little bit, right? This palette is kind of all the same type of tone, but just in different variations of the same tone. So that's kind of a little bit interesting. We're going to go ahead and grab my bronzer. We're just going to do it. All right, I'm just going to kind of clean up. I did get a little bit more fallout on this side using the Mirage palette. So I went ahead and put on some concealer. Let's try to put maybe this color on the lower lash line. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did in the last look. I'm just going to take a pencil brush and I'm going to grab that shade and then I'm going to spray it with some setting spray and see if I can get it to kind of be a little bit darker. So I'm going to grab the bronzer and I'm going to bring that right up underneath it just to add a little bit of definition. I am going to take a blending brush and I want to grab this shade right here and just bring it over top of the crease just to kind of add some shimmer. Now that added a beautiful soft shimmer. So, you know, for those that don't really like a lot of shimmer in the crease, I'm going to take the felt tip applicator and again, I'm going to dampen it with my makeup wipe. And so I'm going to grab this shade right here. I don't think this is going to add much extra, but I want to add a little bit of that right down the center. Okay, so I went ahead and threw on the lash and I put on a brown liquid eyeliner right at the lash band just to kind of, you know, cover the lash band. That's it for the look using the Mirage palette. We're going to go ahead and jump into the swatches and comparisons. And then, of course, I will get into my final thoughts. I have a lot to say, good and bad, so we're going to go ahead and get right into it. So I will see you guys then. Okay, so now that we've made it through the swatches, let me go ahead and get into my final thoughts. I wanted to mention the lippy that I'm wearing is from Chanel. This is the shade Flushed. It's 132 Flushed, and it is just, I think this might be my new favorite summer shade. I love it so much. I think it makes the lips just look really, yeah, I'm here for it. So let's go ahead and dive into my thoughts. So I hope that the swatches and comparisons were helpful for you. You can see that these are just not that pigmented, right? So you have to work with these in order to get what I have on my lid. You can either get a light wash of color, or you can kind of dampen the applicator like I had to, and, you know, really get some full impact, but this is the most impact that you're gonna get. So here's the thing. Not everybody's going to love these. These are not for everyone. These are for those who don't want a lot of shimmer and you want something very, very light on the eye. I would say for somebody like my mom, who really doesn't like to apply a lot of makeup, right? So like, I could see her liking these because they're kind of just a light wash of color and they add a little bit of something to the lid, but they're not too much. I could never see my mom enjoying something like Natasha Denona or Pat McGrath, where they're just really strong pigments and super shimmery, right? So these are not going to be for everyone. And so if you are somebody that likes a lot of shimmer, I don't think that these are even remotely worth it. The other thing I also want to mention is that I don't know that both palettes are worth it. I don't know that I would pick up both palettes. They're both very similar. Of course, the Dune palette is a little bit darker, so you have a little bit more depth, but this one also has a little bit more glitter in it than the Mirage. The Mirage, like I said, is a little bit more on the shimmer side, and the Dune has a little bit more sparkle to it than the Mirage. So it's all going to depend on what you like, but I definitely don't think both palettes are necessary. Even if you're wanting a light wash of color, unless you're just a collector of Dior, then go for it. Buy what you want, girl. But like, I just don't see everybody needing both of these. How they compare to the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Eye Filter Luxury Palette. So these were kind of a limited edition from Charlotte Tilbury. These have so much more sparkle to them than these from Dior. I just swatched the prime shade in the Star Aura palette, and I'm gonna go ahead and swatch this middle shade in the Dune palette. But you will see that these are a little bit, these are even lighter. So the ones from Charlotte Tilbury have much more of a glitter impact than the ones from the Dune palette. Now let me show you guys what it looks like in the Mirage palette. So this is that middle shade in the Mirage. So again, this is the Charlotte Tilbury right up at the top. And then these two are the middle shades from the Dune and Mirage. And the Charlotte Tilbury formula is that Hollywood Flawless Filter impact on the eye. They've got so much more shimmer to them than these from Dior. I mean, these two are from the, this is the Diva Lights. And I'm going to grab two shades from the Eyes of a Star. I'm just going to grab the two top shades, but you can see the level of impact. This one is from Eyes of a Star. Let me show you guys what this shade from the Dune palette. So this is the one that I was using on the outer corner of my eye, this shade right here. I'm going to show you guys what that looks like next to this shade in the Charlotte Tilbury. So this actually gives a pretty good swatch, but I don't think it applies as easy as the Charlotte Tilbury. However, you can get it there, especially if you're using the applicator and even dampening the applicator, but they just don't have as much shimmer and sparkle as the Charlotte Tilbury. I would say they're similar in the way that they're made. If you like the Hollywood Flawless Filter Eye, I would say they're made very similar. So these two palettes are very similar to this Hollywood Flawless Filter Eye palettes, right? The difference is you get a little bit more impact from the Charlotte Tilbury than you do the Dior. So the Dior, you kind of got to work for it. The Charlotte Tilbury, I don't feel like you have to work as hard to get the impact as you do from Dior. So it all depends on what you like. So the thing that I will say that I wish that the Dior palettes had, that the Charlotte Tilbury palettes have, is dimension. So, well, not the Star Aura palette. The Star Aura doesn't have a lot of dimension. All four of these shades are very, very similar, on my skin tone anyway. But the Eyes of a Star and the Diva Lights, they both have some dimension within the shadows, and you can kind of build depth within the palettes. But the Dior palettes, they don't really have a lot of differences. It's just a different tone, but I wish that they had a little bit more of something. Like, I'm fine with them all being shimmer, and I'm fine with them all having to kind of work to build the intensity. I just wish they had a little bit more of a variation, a little bit more of a color story to it, because they're all so similar, especially when you swatch them all. They all, like on the eye, they're just not going to look all that different, in my opinion, especially this palette. They all just kind of look the same once you put them on the eye. They might look different in swatches, but once you get them on the eye, they kind of look the same. So I kind of wish that this had a little bit more variation, but it's very similar to the Star Aura palette because this one doesn't have a lot of variation either. I just don't think everybody's going to love these. You're going to need to be a type of person that loves a little bit of shimmer, a little bit of sparkle. And if you're okay with that, you'll like these, but I don't think these are going to be for everyone. On a personal level, now after using them, would I repurchase them? No, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. That's just me on a personal level. I think that these palettes will be best used in conjunction with other palettes, maybe as like a topper shade, or you know, a palette that you can kind of put in the inner corner and kind of bring it up into the crease and kind of bring that shimmer, because it is very light on the eye. You know, it just all depends on what you're looking for, and it all depends on what you like. So if you like a lot of shimmer and you're just in for the shimmer, you won't like these. These are just not going to do it for you. But if you are someone who just likes a light shimmer and you want it to kind of just be a flush of color, then these will be really pretty. But I would expect to use these in conjunction with other palettes. So I don't hate these, but I don't feel like they're going to work for everyone. It's going to be a very specific person that's going to enjoy these. I hope that this review was helpful. Sound out down below in the comment section. Let us know your thoughts on these. How are you guys feeling about them? Let us know. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me in today's video. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Love you. Bye.